let folks get into the webinar. So we'll start in just a minute. I'm excited to have Norma Ramirez Demise with us this morning. She also did our webinar in January, so excited to have her back talking about leadership in Main Street, a topic she spent some time. Actually, it seems like more than a week ago, but you were with us. Well, I guess it was 2 weeks ago in Fayette with our directors doing some leadership development. So glad to have you back. We'll give folks a 30 more seconds or so to get in here. We are recording this, so it will go into our library on YouTube. You can catch all of our webinars. Norm and I were chatting before we got started this morning that we started these webinars during COVID. And at the time, we were doing one of these per week. We didn't have anything else to do. And so how did we support the network? It was doing a webinar one a week. And just to think about that today and trying to plan that just seems insurmountable. But we're back to our normal routines. While we're waiting for you to get in, I'm going to bring something up on the screen, do a commercial for this webinar series, which we're calling Capacity Building. We're here on March the 18th for the Effective Leadership, Empowering Effective Leadership. Our next one, we're doing these every other month, is in May 13th, Mastering Project Management. So it has to do with effective action planning, event planning, all the things that go into making a successful project, initiative, or an event. So that'll be our workshop, our webinar on May the 13th. And then I want to do another commercial for this added workshop that we put in on April the 15th, and we're going to do this one in Jefferson City, so more centrally located. Looking at assessments, all the self-assessments that everyone did and at the end of 2024, the thing that always rose to the top was fundraising. How do we have an effective budget? How do we have diversified funding? We need help with sponsorships, whatever the topic may be. So we're tapping into Main Street America's wonderful resources in Kathy, and she's going to come talk about action planning best practices, enhanced sponsorship requests, successful fundraising events, board and committee engagement, how to get the whole organization moving forward. And so wanted to do a commercial. It's our normal registration of 150, but we're doing for this workshop, because we do have some sponsorship dollars from USDA, buy one, get one free. So you can send two people for $100, and it does include lunch. And we're at the Courtyard by Marriott in Jefferson City. So hope that you can join us for that. Registration is open for that now. So grab a couple new board members that maybe don't have any experience in fundraising, or committee members, or new folks that you want to recruit into the organization that could help with fundraising, or don't have much experience but want to learn more. So we're going to go ahead and get started, Norma. Let's go ahead and get you set up and ready to go. While you're doing that, I'm going to let people know the chat is open. So I would invite everyone to put your say hello and put the community that you're with and in the chat, so everybody can see that. And then also, in webinar, it's harder to be more interactive, but you can post questions in the chat, or there's also the Q&A button that you can ask questions. I'm going to ask questions as we go through with Norma, but feel free to add your own questions, because we want this to be as interactive as possible. All right, Norma, take it away, and I'll let folks continue to put in where they're from. Hi,
Thank
Barbie.
you,
Hi,
Keith.
Chris. Yep.
Wow, excellent. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Keith, for the introduction. I'm feeling like I've seen the Main Street family in the last few weeks, like Keith said, so it is great to have you here and to be part of this effort. Leadership development is very close to my heart. I was a Main Street director for many years before joining the National Main Street organization, Main Street America, and worked with them for almost 17 years. And always throughout that effort, leadership development was at the forefront. And so we did a lot of the trainings and workshops, but also was proud to say that we created the Main Street America Institute, which is professional development for leaders in Main Street and revitalization. So with that, again, just a topic close to my heart. I wish I had more time than an hour, but we will cover as much as we can, and then we will have more opportunities to get deeper into this. But just wanted to share with you, I'll start with sharing an article that I wrote a few years back, Leading Main Street. I recommended we highlight the key characteristics of effective leaders. So a lot of that is you're going to see my words through this session as well. But the focus of that article is on that effective leaders in Main Street in revitalization really value people. And we'll talk about that today as well. But that is the first principle that I believe should be in our minds. We just talked about fundraising as an important foundational part of building a Main Street program. But in many ways, without people, there's no money either, right? And so the most valuable asset we have is people. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to really look at how do we work with people, how do we attract and develop a leadership base. And so with that, the opportunity to build that capacity within our organization and develop leadership. Often you're going to hear me say, and for many in Missouri Main Street, that Main Street is not just a volunteer leadership type of volunteer recruitment type of effort. It is more of a leadership development opportunity that we have to bring together people that otherwise would not be as involved or consider themselves community leaders. Here we bring district stakeholders, business owners, property owners, residents, that start shy in many ways, but through Main Street, they get to develop those skills and the natural abilities they have to connect with each other, with people, and make things happen. So capacity is an important part of being an effective leader and an effective leadership organization. And then, of course, you're going to hear more about how do we need to lead, but leading through strategy is the key word here for the opportunities we have to avoid being overwhelmed with people bringing all the ideas that they thought for us, but how do we really build the direction that we need to follow. And so we'll talk more about strategy, but that article, you'll see a little bit more on that. And the core values of good leaders really are about making sure that integrity and everything that we stand for is something we bring to the table as well, so that we know what's important. And of course, with the 4-point approach, we know that we can utilize that framework to confirm where we stand with regards to support to small businesses, to support to small scale development, to support the sense of place and preservation of our existing assets, and to promote our community and the hub that they can have in downtown. And then this is one of the many opportunities that you will have in your journey of Main Street to continue to learn from one day to the next. In Main Street, we're always learning, and that's the beauty of this effort. And I'm hoping that's also one of the reasons why people enjoy it. It's a passion. It becomes a passion. And so I'm hoping you enjoy that article. Keith will be adding it to the resource library for you to have. But let me start with some statistics. For those of you who are familiar or new to, there's a philanthropic organization, a national organization that keeps track of philanthropy across the country. And it's the independent sector, independentsector.org is their website. So feel free to take a look at it because it's an important opportunity. It's going to be an important tool for you to utilize. They estimate the value of volunteer time. And I just wanted to highlight that that value throughout the last years has continued to increase. So one of the reasons why we say, people are valuable to us is not only because their time is important for our efforts, but also because it becomes an opportunity to add it to our return on investment. Um, when people volunteer, they're giving us time that otherwise it will cost us or it will cost somebody money, right? And so we need to value our volunteers because they bring skills, perspectives, and they give us and invest their time in this effort. So volunteering continues to grow in Missouri in particular. It has continued to grow in the last few years, and by the end of 2023, the value of the volunteer hour, not that people get paid for volunteering, but it is the estimation of the value of that hour, it's more than $30. So what that means is if people give us 5 hours in a month, then that's the equivalent times 31, so that we can say for every dollar that somebody invests in cash or the city invests in Main Street, the community gives us back so much in time. So that's one of the opportunities that you have to add a very good justification to the value of the time, but more importantly, is because we get things done through volunteers. Another opportunity that we have is to look at how many organizations need volunteers and are needing and depending on volunteers. For the last 2 decades, we have new nonprofits that have been built, a little bit more consistent in the last few years, but about 40,000 nonprofits sharing the opportunities to get about 60 million volunteer hours across the country. So again, a lot of organizations like yours, you're not alone. A lot of organizations across the country depend on the value of that volunteer. And so how important it is for us to make sure that we develop that talent, that investment, and into leaders for our organizations. And here is a chart that I wanted to add of a study that was done, a report that was done with regards to volunteer management. And I will highlight a couple of things throughout the session. But just so that you can see, they calculated the number of volunteers versus the number of volunteer hours. And the more volunteer, the less, if I can say that, for organizations that are with less than 10 volunteers, then volunteers that are involved are investing more time. Of course, that's a natural, logical reaction, right? We don't have as many people. We need to invest more time from the people we have. But that is the dangerous pattern on volunteer retention because that's not sustainable. We need to share, and as we grow, then more volunteer hours help balance the load of volunteers. And in Missouri, since 2006, you've had almost 650,000 hours. That's more than $20 million invested in just time from people that care for their downtowns in Missouri. So keep this message in your minds, but also feel free to share it with people that their time, their investment in your organization is very valuable and appreciated. So here is a question with an example that I wanted to highlight as well. And that's an opportunity to ask the question, how do we attract people to Main Street? And Keith, you can interrupt me if if you want to have the poll and as well. But this is a key question. We keep saying across the country and in any and every one of our organizations, we need more volunteers. But how do we attract them? What is the invitation that we offer to them? I wanted to highlight one of the communities where I was recently, Richfield, Main Street in Richfield, Washington, because I was very impressed with them as an example, and I wanted to include it here because we all feed from each other's examples, and I know that's what we love about conferences and the times when we can get and interact together. And so I wanted to highlight their example. They have a video in their website that it's basically a recruitment tool, and they highlight, and it's beautifully done. So again, that's another opportunity. If you're saying, well, how do I do that? Norma will be asking herself that question. How do I do a video that highlights all these beautiful things that they've done? Well, that's an opportunity then to also recruit a volunteer with those skills if we need them as well. But everything that I wanted to highlight as far as attracting volunteers that have so much leadership potential for our organizations is about sharing the message of Main Street. What are we here to do? What is it that we've done so far? And how can people be part of this effort as well? So one of the things that you'll hear me often say is that we have a theory about people and their engagement. For the most part, we highlight that the first ones to get involved are the visionaries. And about 25%, hopefully more in your community, are people who can just see in their minds what is it that they can accomplish for downtown and in downtown, and how the district could be beautiful and vibrant and successful, and the community can come and enjoy. They see it in their minds, even though it's not there yet. And so those visionaries we need right away. We need to invite visionaries, and that can be part of your message if you're starting a program, saying we're looking for visionaries. The days of just being generally inviting people to volunteer is like saying we have space for rent and we don't know what we want. Therefore, the message is just for rent. In today's environment, just like in the economic environment, we are recommending for people to be more strategic and tactical about what they want, what is the best use of this space that complements what we have already in downtown. That should be strategically developed and worked with the property owner to pursue this in similar ways with our volunteers. We need to highlight who we want, what we want them to do, and if they have the skills, they will align that message with what they have to offer, and the motivation will be an opportunity for us. So take a look at this example. I know that there are many more from your peers here in Missouri and also across the country, but I loved the fact that they were very careful in highlighting a connection through the video that basically portrays everything that they've done, or maybe not everything, but a great summary, an inviting message of together we can accomplish anything. Not only do they then highlight what they've done, but then they say, okay, this has been done through volunteers, and there's an opportunity for everybody. So take a peek, but I would like us to also answer that question. How do we attract people to Main Street, especially people that we want to lead different aspects of the organization?
And Norma, those folks that attended the workshop in Fayette 2 weeks ago with Phil Ike um, learned how to tell that story. Whatever that messaging is, how to interview folks to get that message, easy, simple video techniques to use. So I think that workshop is really going to help our Main Street programs do exactly what you were talking about.
Fantastic. And again, we are very good at highlighting how people and why people should come downtown. And that's an important part of our message with regards to volunteers and the people that we need. We need to start looking at more details and innovative ways to appeal to people about what we're all doing in downtown and how they can be part of that. So yes, so this was also an opportunity for you all to respond to this question. A lot of this session will be about reflection. What are we doing, especially if you're building something or if you want to refresh it or take it to the next level? In Main Street, we often say that Main Street is not a project, it is a journey. And sometimes what happens is we've done wonderful things, but then comes the next level of growth and more innovation, and it keeps us refreshing our efforts and looking for more opportunities to make the invitation to others that are yet to make downtown part of their life. And what we say also is once in Main Street, always in Main Street, because again, there's so much that can capture every aspect of your life. I said on and off that throughout the years that I found my niche in Main Street. I found that everything that I have really has a place and can be leveraging my skills, my talent, my love, and for community. And I am pretty sure that there are many people out there, including all of you, who feel the same way. So if you feel that way, what will be the message we want others um, to to consider? And another opportunity that we have is to also include or ask somebody that is not as involved to help us assess our communication tools. And perhaps a business owner or a resident or kids from the schools to help us take a look and see how will they go and invite people to be part of the downtown revitalization efforts. Sometimes our eyes are so used to what we see that we normalize it, right? We think, oh, that's the way that people will just do it. But in reality, perhaps others can give us fresh new ideas.
Norma, did you want to do
And
the first poll, or
oh,
do you have
yes,
us?
please. Thank you. Thank you. Mhm.
So we want to know who's on the call today. So you should, do you see a poll? Um,
Yep.
there we go. Yep. Fill out, tell us who's on the webinar today. Norma can um, customize some of the messaging.
Thank you. This is very helpful, and I am very happy to always see a variety or a diverse participation, not only from Main Street staff, but also board members and committee members and other volunteers.
I think we are missing two people though, but they may be preoccupied right now. So there you go, Norma. 33% are board members, 8% volunteers, 50% is staff, 25% committee members, and 17% other. And they could pick more than one, because they could be a board member and a committee member. So I allowed them to pick more than one. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you. And this is important because, again, this is an opportunity for all of you, not only staff, but board and committee leaders to see what we highlight as far as the opportunities to look at the topic and think of new ideas, see the examples. And again, when we look at downtown, we often highlight for people to come downtown. But when we look at the organization, we need to also be very clear in our message of what do we want people to come and do, and why should they be part of this effort as well. So when we look at volunteering, again, like I said, in Main Street, let's keep in mind that we don't want to just have people volunteer as a labor force. Although we are very grateful for all the opportunities that we have to make calls for people to come for events or cleanups, cleanup days, etc., where most of what we need people is for the labor. In Main Street and many of our organizations, if not all, we need leaders. And so, in order to get leaders or people with natural abilities to lead and to take on some responsibilities because they are interested in supporting downtown, we need to be more specific. So I look at and recommend for you to consider the Main Street approach is there for plenty of things, as a tool. So it should be as a tool for us to consider what we need volunteers for. And so I look at websites, social media, especially, when I'm doing sessions, I want to understand what do you bring and where are you in your journey and how can we help you with these sessions. And so when we think of volunteers, again, because we're thinking on an elevated focus, we want leaders. We want people to be able to take responsibility and own it. And therefore, we want to make sure we use the 4-point approach as a tool. And so I take a look and see that most of us make the volunteer appeal or the invitation in a very general way, but very with an emotional driven invitation. And I think that is excellent. We need you, or Main Street needs you. And then you capture a message that people can feel and it resonates in them. But when we get to how people can volunteer and become engaged, then we become very general and leave it very in a very general format. And so my invitation today is for you to take a look at your communication tools and consider more specific opportunities, especially from the examples that we're going to highlight today and the principles that we're talking about, that people are the most valuable asset. So how do we capture their attention and how do we demonstrate to them from the start that their time is very valuable? So let's consider those opportunities. Most are general forms. Here, complete this, and I'll get back to you. And again, nothing wrong with that, but if we really are thinking beyond the opportunity to have somebody say, yeah, I'm here. What would you like me to do? And that's again, what I say, most nonprofits, we need to elevate our focus to go beyond thinking that people are just going to come and show up to our doors and into thinking, how do we engage people even if they're not there with us, online, remotely, and through everything that we do as well. And so capture those opportunities, look for good examples, and we're going to highlight some today. But in general, when I look at the 4-point approach, and I also look at the many websites and social medias out there of our Main Street communities, I still see a very strong focus on volunteers for events and volunteers for general cleanup or labor opportunities, come and help, but not many that are actually looking at the interest of getting the talent of people. And in today's environment, with more than, with tens of thousands of nonprofit organizations across the country, we need to define our message. And we need to, like a business, we're just not a nonprofit business, a nonprofit organization, we need to highlight the opportunities to describe to people the needs that we have of their talents and of what they have to offer. So
Norma, I was going
here's
to jump in real quick. I
please,
totally agree with what you're saying. And, a lot of times we talk about we just will take anyone and everyone, which we do for certain things, particularly events and things like that when we need a lot of people. But, what are the specific talents that we need, whether it's helping us with social media, as you mentioned in one of the previous slides, maybe it's helping put a video together, somebody that has those talents. And so putting that job up there on the volunteer page as these are people that we're looking for. I keep challenging one of our Main Street programs in Missouri to have a volunteer coordinator. And that's a job. And then the other job we forget about a lot of times is a photographer.
yes.
We are putting on an event or working on a project, and we've got our sleeves rolled up, but we forget to take those pictures that then help us tell the story afterwards. When I was a Main Street director, there were many times at the end of the day, and we had just put on this big event, and we all went, "Oh my gosh, we forgot to take pictures." And so, a photographer is a volunteer job, and there's some great ways to recruit those folks or to target those folks. But if they don't know that's what you're looking for, they're not going to volunteer.
Right. And like a business will not be just posting, I need help, although many do that way, net help wanted. Honestly, when I look at those type of messages, I figure that it's not me, right? It is, why? Because if you're not specific, if you're not
Yeah,
telling me something that can connect me to my
yeah.
background and my desire to be part of the community, um, I would suggest to take a look at those opportunities to again, and we'll talk more about those job descriptions, just like a business, a similar format but a volunteer opportunity, basically a volunteer leadership opportunity.
Mhm,
One thing I want to highlight is that I do see many promoting the opportunities to be part of a committee. And that is fantastic. I think that is great. Then I would challenge you to consider what do you want me to do in that committee?
mhm,
And so if you have something and you feel very proud of what you've laid out, please highlight your examples if you and share them because we want to brag about your efforts as well. But also the opportunity to take it to the next level and then be more specific to see if that is something that can connect you. And I'm pretty sure you might have a good responses, a good number of responses when you are more specific. I found this, community to have a very welcoming atmosphere. And when you have that and you translate it into your communication tools, that historic environment is just so cozy and welcoming. Then the volunteer section or the opportunities to be engaged should highlight all that as well. And although help is something we often say, honestly, when people give you their time and their talents, they're investing in downtown. And so that is again the opportunity that we have. But I found that again, how do we connect with people when we say it's not just you, we want you to volunteer as a family? And I remember, leaders that became part of our board because they started volunteering at the 4th of July parade with their family. And so consider those opportunities that it's not just one person. It might be that they want to volunteer with the entire family, that they do want to volunteer in a committee. So be specific about not only being a member of the committee, but also what opportunities do they have. We say in Main Street that every committee, if you decide to have 3 projects or 5 projects or events, etc., that you should have a champion or a leader for every project. And that person will then be responsible for adding more hands and more support to those efforts as well. So being specific on our way of looking for leaders in a committee. It can be the volunteer coordinator for the design committee. It can be the photographer for the events, like Keith highlighted. And then there's an opportunity to highlight that in today's environment, some people want to volunteer from the comfort of their home. And the connection to their computer allows them to offer their time in something that might be whether it's just remote and virtual, or okay, like doing graphic design, taking a look at polls or surveys, etc., social media. But then there might be just events or projects or activities that they just want to do once, and maybe that will be the first connection, or perhaps the only connection that we'll want for a little bit. So consider those opportunities. And again, this is another example where we are very attentive to the visual, the message, be part of our community, and then highlight what we've achieved with the volunteers that we've had so far. And this community, when I see, 3,500 volunteer hours, I know that then this community is having a wide range, a broad range of activities that allow for volunteers to come and be part of the organization. And of course, one thing that I highlighted in the committee development session and that I love is seeing how many of your organizations, and I recommend going to that webinar because it was specifically focused on the committees, but how good it is to see the descriptions of the committees, what they're doing, when they're meeting, who is involved. And I've invited organizations to put a face to those committee leaders, committee volunteers. Again, we often highlight, and it's something I recommend, to have the board and their picture, where they're coming from, what business or organization are they attached, but also a brief description of why are they involved. And that perhaps resonates with me or with anybody that is reading that. The same I recommend for putting not only the names, but that's a good starting point of the committee members, and then of course of the volunteers, and perhaps highlight testimonials of why they love being engaged in Main Street. And I love also being able to see a calendar. I don't often see that, and I recommend it. And again, this is Gardnersville in Colorado, and it's a community that puts a good message, and I just wanted to highlight it as an example. And of
Well, and I'll
course,
share,
from
Norma, that Excelsior Springs does a really good job of every month there's an email that goes out reminding folks of when every committee is meeting and what they're particularly working on at this time of the year. It goes out to their entire network, not just committee members, and so is a good way to keep folks engaged and informed and reminded. Maybe I can't help in the winter because of my job, but in the summer I'm available. They could be a school teacher or something, and so different ways to communicate that message. But yeah, you've got to tell people in lots of different ways about how to get involved, and it can't just be social media because you're missing a huge percentage of the population if that's your only form of communication.
And why am I highlighting so much about attracting people to Main Street in the format of volunteering? Because that is the seed for leadership development, right? That is the opportunity for us to start capturing what people have to offer. I've had volunteers when I was a Main Street director, where it took them to go from the organization committee, from the design committee to the EV committee to the other committees, until they found their niche, until they found their place. But they wanted to find that place. Others, they knew, because we learned throughout the years to look at what is it that people want to provide, to invest in us. And Main Street has a place for everybody. Honestly, there's like the banner said, there's an opportunity for everyone. if we're able to capture it and put it in our communication tools, in our social media. I just saw recently from a community in Oklahoma that an invitation for looking for photographers, and another one looking for artists and for graphic designers, etc. So there are great opportunities to start developing the leadership base that you need. Of course, Excelsior Springs, I'm always very impressed. Warrensburg, and I would suggest if you have the opportunity, go through all the Missouri Main Street accredited communities. They've been doing this and they've learned, and they are continuing to learn and evolve. And Warrensburg is another example where I like how they highlight right there in their homepage, volunteer here. How often do I see the menu of options that highlights donate, be a member, support us, but volunteering, it's a straightforward invitation. Volunteer here. What a wonderful opportunity to then not only welcome volunteers and explain the opportunities that they have, but in Warrensburg, caught my attention, and kudos to them that they actually have a Facebook for a group. And again, this, they highlight the group, and it's like building a community. And that's wonderful. That's what we want to do, especially post-COVID. And of course, throughout the years, people have tried to recover their social interaction, their connection, their sense of belonging. And when Main Streets offer that as an invitation and build community, you really not only have downtown as a place where people feel welcome, your organization sends the invitation for people to feel welcome. And so that's a great opportunity to say that with volunteers, you're building a family. And that's one thing that I can say I'm proud of, having left the local level effort to go to the national Main Street. What I remember that I always kept in my heart is that I built, helped build a family. And so that's what we leave behind. And that's the opportunity also to be very proud. Wanted to highlight, and Keith will include this in the resource library, that again, I'm very proud when the communities I work with, go from this level to the next, and they're always pushing themselves. And again, those are opportunities to say, how GAMSA, Great American Main Street, also in Michigan, developed a volunteer handbook. And so I recommend it. You're going to look at this, and you're going to like a lot of things. So in Main Street, we say, feel free to copy and rip off and duplicate, but make sure that it fits your community, that it aligns with your community, the language, the message, the pictures, of course.
And I included it in the chat, so you can grab it from there too.
Thank you, thank you. And that's the opportunity, and it's a large file, I
Mhm.
think, but it is something that you can go through their website and get as well. And I'll talk with their executive director soon, and so I'll highlight this. I always like to highlight your efforts. So if you are very proud of something that you've done, please include it in the chat and let us know, send us pictures, because we want to brag about the success and things that really make us all feel very proud. Wanted to highlight the QR codes. Everybody's using them. It's so convenient. And so they're using it as well here as well. I can tell you that, some of us might say, well, I need somebody to actually help me say, how do I do this? Well, that's another volunteer opportunity there. They highlight, introduce their efforts, and then talk about their committees, talk about their events and each event, and then questions and the opportunities to include. So again, when we're thinking of volunteers to become the leaders of our organization in different aspects of our organization, we are needing to look at this, as deeper, more innovative approach than just inviting people in a general invitation, come and volunteer and fill out a form.
That looks really
Uh,
nice. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. I feel very proud of their efforts and that. And here's another community that, again, I work across the country, so you'll see examples from places I've been, but Three Rivers in Michigan, their website, their homepage is Teamwork with the Vision, the best way to revitalize a downtown. So I love it. I always use it, and they still have it as part of their but this is what we do in Main Street. Build a team. And you might have right now, because you're starting, just, you consider yourself the board of directors a team. And we take a look at that. If you are able to then get into the place where you hire and have staff, professional staff, then creates that additional team of support. And again, these I highlighted as gears. Please forgive me. I'm an engineer in my background, so that's always, tables and gears. I'm thinking about that structure and how things fit and work with each other. And then, of course, the committees. In some cases, I find organizations that have basically only the board of directors, and I would, again, applaud all the efforts of a board that is so dynamic and proactive. I've seen many as we visited the new communities in Missouri, especially as well recently. But that's an opportunity to say, as we grow, we're going to need that support system. And the committees are a support system to the board and to implementing the efforts. So you have teams within the organization that basically build the whole family or the team. And all these teams need to work together. And so that also has to be part of our thought and our thinking. And it has to be conscious thinking. It cannot be like, oh, well, we just go along and human resource management, now more often called talent management, is crucial. It's important. And so you might think of, okay, how do these gears in our organization work? How can we make it work? Well, Main Street gave us frameworks that we can use, and that's the value of the Main Street approach. But I wanted to highlight something that Patrick Lencioni said, and I might mispronounce his last name, but he is somebody that really looks at organizational management and highlights that it's teamwork, the advantage. When we work as a team, when we achieve that cohesiveness and that opportunity to say we finish each other's words or sentences, it is powerful. And Patrick has written many books, including one that I love that I wanted to share. So feel free to Google him, and that's Death by Meetings. And that I know that you're going to. I wish I see you because I smiled when I saw it, because we all can understand that our teamwork, our team environment cannot survive when we meet and use that time that is so valuable and we achieve nothing. And so again, the opportunity to really look at, we get volunteers, we attract people. Now, how do we develop them and we cultivate their leadership? And I wanted to highlight that I believe, and I've been promoting this theory of multifaceted roles in revitalization, that it's not just one, that it's more than one. And I wanted to highlight that in Main Street, we execute. The work of revitalization depends on that spirit and that ability to act, to take action. And so we do. The challenge with doing is that sometimes, again, we keep ourselves at the labor force level. We're saying, I'm on the ground, therefore, everything that needs to be in the weeds. Even organizing projects takes me to the next level. And then after projects takes, what is the next level? So execution is a part of the multifaceted roles that we have. It's one of the roles. Taking action is important and it has value. But what we want is to take action, not because we're the only ones doing it. If you find yourself, and this is a question that I want you to take on and make it yours, when you're talking and planning, are we doing this with the community, with those that are benefiting from this effort, or just for their benefit? And see what's the answer. If the answer is we should include more people, we should go and take time to engage more people, then make that a priority, because that is going to help us. No one person can take too much on their shoulders until they burn out, and then they just want to leave because it's too much. And that happens in Main Street, not only to our Main Street directors, but in our boards and in our committees. So what we need to is prioritize the width, and everything that we are going to do, that we say we can do it, the question is with or just for. And if it is with, then who do we need to engage? But then there is also the opportunity to say that we manage. And this is an area that I think we need more work in Main Street, because sometimes we get to organize events without managing the processes and the structure and the coordination we need. But managing is important. And what we do manage is resources, not people, but the time, the skills, the talents that people provide to us. Those are the resources. And then the financial resources as well. And so those are important pieces. We lead is our third role in Main Street. We want to make sure that we lead people, we inspire, we look at the big picture. Leaders need to take a look at the big picture and be true to their missions, keeping in mind what we want to achieve, and being very good at saying the big picture needs a strategy. It's not about all the projects if the projects don't direct us into something that moves the needle. It is about making sure we have a strategy, and that's why you hear us talk so much about strategy, and we're going to highlight a little bit more. Here's another opportunity for you to have an exercise with your boards, but also with your committees. If you have committees in place, take a look at that list of volunteers, starting with your board. Who do we have? What their current role is, whether it's in the board, in the committees, in the subcommittees, or a project specifically. What representation they bring to the table. In other words, what perspective they bring as a business owner, as a resident, as a downtown property owner, or as a city representative or another organization. And then what background they bring, that it's something that we need, and we need at this time, or we will need in the future as we move to the next steps in our efforts. So why is it important sometimes? Well, it is important because people bring different perspectives, diverse perspectives that give us the understanding from that level. Property owners, business owners, residents, youth, the aging in place, or the mature professionals, etc. So let's compare that table and what you have to your own demographics, to make sure that you identify the strengths, but also recognize gaps, and more importantly, opportunities. And what do you then decide to do to bring a more balanced level of broad-based community representation, community participation that can guide our volunteer recruitment strategies? That opportunity to say we need more youth, we need people that, we need an attorney, or we need somebody that knows about finances, etc. That can guide the strategy. It is important to compare it to your communities, because it's going to help you understand if more than 1 out of 4 people in your community are younger than 18. And here's an example of that: 25% is younger than 18, that means 1 out of 4 people, then not only your board and your committees should have youth, but also your programming needs to be focused on the youth as well, include them as well. In Missouri, you can compare, and I really like to do this exercise because it's always an opportunity to say where are we with regards to our state. Keep it in mind so that you can also consider how you are progressing from one year to the next. I wanted to also highlight there's an opportunity to just create a simple table, and say, okay, let's do an assessment. What are the overall strengths of our board, of our staff, of our committees? If you're not having staff right now, that's okay. The table doesn't need to include that. If everything is being done by the board right now, because that's the only base you have right now, that's your team, that's what you're going to look. And then as you look at the strengths and needs, you're going to then probably highlight the needs for more support to distribute the load to make it more balanced. Wanted to highlight whether you are the team of the board or you have the opportunity to have staff already. The big picture is what I said, it should be in your minds. And again, the strategy of what we do. What is it that we want to achieve? And so when you are, I'm hoping you are familiar now, because Missouri uses this circle that I love a lot in our planning sessions. The planning and implementation of the Main Street approach is not just about saying, okay, we're going to do something in each of the 4 points, but how do we go about it? From inviting the community, from understanding the market, to defining strategies and taking on the work. And so for board members, and of course, if you have staff, you look at the big picture. So you use the information you've gathered from the community and your market to make an informed decision about your strategic direction for the program. What are you going to do? And then you share it with your committees, so that this then can be the guiding that you offer to the work planning process. That's the strategy we're going to use. This is how you're going to go about it, so that then you can manage the work planning process. And I said, the leader identifies and defines the strategy. Then you manage the planning process and make sure that there's no accidental work in our work. That is one of the biggest barriers or challenges we have. We get too much accidental work, which I've defined in some of the sessions. It's basically ideas that come to us because somebody thought about it the night before, and now they want us to take another project on in 2 months. Here we go, another thing. And so accidental work sometimes keeps us from actually following the strategic direction we need to follow. So the board is responsible to ensure that there's no accidental work, that every project is approved because it has gone through a process that aligns with their strategy, that is indicative of the community's input, and that it is also highlighted that as something we can achieve because it fits our capacity. With that, again, we consider the demographics we have to make sure that we are going to invite people that can support those efforts, and then highlight how we're going to measure. All of this is keeping track of the big picture that the board and your staff is responsible for. And then in leading and managing, that's the application that we've been talking about. When you have the committees, then this effort is the committees are the ones who lead and manage the work planning and implementation, providing and making sure that what they see as the projects aligns with the strategies, because they've taken that from the input that has been gathered, not because, oh, I just want to create something. We need to use the information we've gathered and leverage it to make sure that we evaluate what we're doing what is potentially a good thing to do, and perhaps what is something that is being done or can be done by other organizations, and it doesn't need to be done by us, but it is part of aligning and supporting a strategy. And making sure then that we have the resources, human and financial, to make that project that we're recommending to the board happen. Or if not, then that's going to give us an opportunity to say how many projects are we recommending that will need fundraising. Therefore, the capacity needs to be considered and assessed before we approve it. And then ensure that work plans are in place, measurable goals, that we measure success, what's that going to look like, so that it can be ready then after we implement it to celebrate it and to share it with the community as well. Again, Patrick mentioned a cohesive leadership. When we look at the framework that Main Street provides to us, it really allows us the opportunity to build cohesion and to build strategic uh, teamwork that is focused on the strategy. Another way that you're going to see it is this format in horizontal, where it looks at the 4 points and say, are we addressing all the aspects of revitalization that are aligned to the strategy? And that is a work that then allows you the opportunity to say, we need leaders that have this background in design, or that they have an opportunity to add this background in promotion. And it allows you the opportunity to not only develop, but also cultivate more leadership talent from within the community and your area. Here's some examples of the job descriptions, but invite you to again consider what we highlighted. And just wanted to highlight, and I know that I'm taking a little bit of time. Is that okay, Keith?
Yes.
Um,
As we're winding down, as Norma's finishing, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. There were a couple questions about some templates or spreadsheets. I've put those in the chat to share. They're also in our resource library, so I've done some of that while Norma's been talking. But if you have specific questions, go ahead and type them in while Norma's finishing.
Thank you. When we look at practices in a nonprofit environment, this volunteer management report is looking at charities across the country, and they've highlighted recruitment and placement. And that's what we've been talking about, right? We want to attract people. We want to place them in the right position. Sometimes it will take some time for them to find their place where they feel that they can lead and be comfortable at. So that's an opportunity. But this practice across the country, more than 60%, almost 65%, really follow a practice of matching volunteers to appropriate tasks or jobs. So let's make sure that we in Main Street catch up with those practices. If you have examples, again, please share them, because we want to for others to also see. But then again, screening procedures to identify volunteers. Sometimes that's not as active as that. But here's an example from Stevenson in Washington. Their Main Street program highlights the volunteer opportunities and how people they can go. And they highlight the job description, and it's a whole manual that I also shared, that basically says these are the people. I still, I think that it's still general enough that if you're starting, I think this is a great tool. And then for those of you who are mature, you can take it and say, oh, how can I make it my own? And even innovate and share with us once you do that. And they even have a circle that highlights how each committee chair also is part of the board. And so again, just an example to highlight a practice that should be a best practice as we build a strong Main Street organization. Communication is crucial, and it is a practice that we recommend be done not only often, but also in different ways, because we all have preferences with communication. Some of us through social media, through the website, through email. Others depend on a call or a thank you note or something in writing. So keep in mind that that is a practice most nonprofits are following communication of the value of volunteers to volunteers. So it's a practice about with each other internally, but also it should be with the board and the community. Supporting and assessment is other practices, and we can dig deeper into in other sessions about these opportunities to really build leaders. Like I said at the beginning, this should be, a whole day workshop, and I love the topic, but I wanted to include another article that I wrote about it, cultivating effective leadership. You're going to see again my focus on building a foundation on people and how can we empower them to lead, to make sure the community is more engaged and that we're strategy driven in our leadership approach. And of course, you're going to see comments from peers. And with that, I welcome questions and opportunities to talk.
And Norma, I put all of the resources you shared with me this morning into the chat, so give folks an opportunity to grab those. If there are any questions that folks have, you can either type them into the chat or into the Q&A. I think I've taken care of all those questions that have come through looking for either templates or ideas. The board assessment, board composition assessment, we have a template that we use. Also, it's now part of Main Street America's self-assessment. There's a spreadsheet that they provide that has a lot of that same information in it that you would have done recently in submitting your self-assessment. Use that form to evaluate next time you have board vacancies, to look at what skills you're missing, or maybe you have a project coming up. We use the example a lot of times. Maybe you want to put a community empowerment or a community improvement grant. I can't talk this morning. A community improvement district in place, and it would be great to have an attorney on your board to help you through that process as an organization. And so that might be a skill that you seek out to be a board member for a project that you have coming up in the future. Norma, I think you did a great job. There isn't many questions. Like I said, I answered a lot of them as they were coming through, so not much there at the end. I highly recommend look at the information that Norma shared in the resources. We also have resources on our website, as does Main Street America. Main Street America did put together a volunteer handbook toolkit template a few years back that just provide some basic information on Main Street America, and then you insert the pieces and parts related to your organization. But I really liked the Howell Main Street one that you shared. I think that that's a really good model to follow. Very graphic, lots of explanations and photos of people having fun, and that's what we have to sell is fun. But at the same time, we're going to make our community a great place.
Yeah. And honestly, what a wonderful opportunity to have examples and say, how can I make it my own and even better? And
Right.
we
Yeah.
all welcome that. If you saw my simple chart of board assessment, well, you all have made it even prettier.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. That's an
Yeah.
opportunity there.
Yeah. Some great comments coming in, Norma. Thank you for the presentation, a wealth of information. Thank you very much. So, on that, we will say goodbye for now. This will be stored on our YouTube page. Hope that we see you in April 15th in Jeff City for fundraising. I think that's really, while it says fundamentals of fundraising, it really is going to dive into each of those various aspects that we need for a diversified budget. And Kathy's going to do a great job with that. And then our May webinar on capacity building will be on action planning, on how to project management, how to put a good plan together for that. So we appreciate that. Norma, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
everybody.
I know we'll see you in other things throughout the year, so stay tuned. And everyone have a great day. See you later. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.